Dr. Misty Freeman is Director of Special Education for Houston County Schools and founder of Mocha Sprout, a consulting firm focused on belonging and inclusion. With over 20 years in education, she's an author and expert in instructional technology, accessibility, and strategies that help all learners thrive. Judith Quinlan is an executive function coach and university professor with more than 15 years helping students with ADHD, autism, and dyslexia succeed. She designs educator training and personalized strategies that build confidence, organization, and independence, turning study struggles into success stories for neurodivergent learners and their families. Samantha Owens is a learning specialist at Beacon College, where she supports first and second year students in building strong academic habits. With a background in exceptional student education and applied behavior analysis, she brings practical tools and compassionate guidance to help students transition smoothly from high school to college. And we're going to begin our conversation with Dr. Freeman. Parents often ask, where do I even start? From your experience, what's the first thing families can do at home to help a child who struggles staying organized or remembering, help them learn?
That's a very common question, and we receive that question from parents all the time. I think the main thing a parent can do in the home is bring about consistency. And consistency can be very simple. You don't necessarily need an organizational tool or some kind of elaborate app, but something as simple as making sure that students know or a child knows where to put their book bag in the household when they come in the afternoon. They know where to study, where to do their schoolwork. Are you doing your schoolwork at the dinner table, or are you doing your schoolwork in the bedroom at your desk? These things take mental energy for neurodiverse students and children. So knowing these things ahead of time, they know where to go, what to do, and it doesn't become so unorganized inside their head. So that's the main thing, is consistency in the home, making sure they're not using that mental energy, designating spots in the household. These are all simple tools, and these are all things that can be implemented immediately to help the child stay organized and to also be a starting point for parents. So I think that's the main thing, is creating a space of consistency so that that child can thrive.
So Judith, you've worked with so many students who learn differently. What is one mindset shift that will help parents and students feel less stressed about study time?
The biggest mindset shift that I could recommend is that the function and purpose of studying is to learn how to learn. It's not singularly about that one test or that one moment. What you're doing is you're giving your student the opportunity to discover different ways in which he and she can assimilate information. So it's really bigger picture, and it not only relates to the immediate need of the test, but it spans into their lifetime, so that if they learn how to learn, whether professionally at college or even in any type of communicative situations, they can pull back on the resources they've learned from studying. So studying isn't about getting an A on a test, it's about learning how to learn.
Thank you. So Samantha, when students start college, what is the biggest change or surprise that they face about how studying changes, and how can parents help prepare their teens for that jump?
So one of the biggest surprises is really how independent studying really becomes. In high school, students typically have somebody there to help guide them through the whole process. They have somebody maybe providing reminders, helping them break up and chunk the information that they need to study for a test, checking on their progress. And in college, a lot of that becomes expectations that professors have of students to do more independently. They need to be able to manage their own time. They need to be able to keep up with heavier reading, and they need to be able to ask for help by themselves if they need it. So one of the things that parents can really do is start practicing those things. Even something like role playing with students. How do you contact your professor and ask for assistance in office hours? How do you go to office hours and what do you ask if you're struggling with preparing for a test? It might be something like helping them to practice using a calendar to keep track of important upcoming dates, or even how to take a large amount of information and break it down into manageable chunks that they can review before a test. If they're practicing it with parents, then when they have to do that in college, they're not doing it for the first time. So it's a little bit less of a shock.
All right, thank you. So, Dr. Freeman, is there a simple memory trick that both teachers and parents can use to help students who need a little extra support?
One simple trick is to chunk information. I think that makes it relatable and relevant to the child. For example, if your child has a difficult time or your student has a difficult time remembering their address, let's just say the address is 221 Forest Avenue. We may start a chant, two twos and a one, two twos and a one. That lets us know the number for the address. We can also add more to it. Two twos and a one, trees in an avenue. Two twos and a one, trees in an avenue. Two twos and a one, trees in an avenue. So we chunk the information. It may take us a couple of days to remember the two, two, and a one, but eventually the student will remember it because it's relatable. It's a chant. It's something that they enjoy. Trees in an avenue. That is so silly, but at the same time, forest is a tree. I mean, forest is full of trees. So we have trees in the avenue. So I think when you chunk the information, you make it relevant, it is so much easier to remember. If we think about commercials, a lot of times they use chants. So a chant is a good way for a student to remember information, to make it relevant, to make it relatable, and it carries on into the future because more than likely, if they have a chant, they will not forget the chant.
All right. So, Judith, we've been talking a little bit about chunking, and this may be answering my question right here. But if you have a student that says, I read the book, but I can't remember the information, are there any other strategies that they can employ to help that information stick?
What I've done with my students is that we call it intention, connection, and capture. Before you start reading, talk about what your intention is with the learning. It could be that you want to know about this content. It could be that you need to study it. Whatever it is, it gives you a sense of purpose prior to reading. While you're reading, create a visual image or make some type of life connection, something that is reminding you of what the content is. And then the last thing is within 2 minutes of when you finish your reading, is capture one key element, only one thing that is relevant to you. And you can document that through a storyboard. You can, for older students, they can send themselves a voicemail. You can put it on sticky notes. You can draw it. And for some students, they even have the opportunity to then teach the class the one concept, but really limiting it to an intention. What is your purpose? Connection, making a personal connection to the reading, and then capturing one key detail or element that resonated with you.
All right, thank you. So, Samantha, I assume that vocabulary lists are still popular in schools. So, I'm wondering, do you have a favorite study hack for helping students memorize vocabulary terms or key words that they could try tonight?
It can be really hard to remember vocabulary terms and like their definitions if we're just looking at the words alone. So one of the things I always recommend is to use something called dual coding. And really that's just pairing the word with a visual or an image that can help students remember its meaning a little bit better. So that might be something like if the term is photosynthesis, putting on a flashcard photosynthesis and then drawing next to it a picture of like the sun and lines going to a plant, because students are going to be able to remember that image a little bit better than they can remember just the words alone. Linking the two together, the word and the image, is going to make that recall a lot stronger for students. It takes a little bit of the pressure off working memory, and can also like make an abstract concept a little bit more concrete. So just pairing those two together, also adding in a musical component, like it was mentioned earlier, the chants, something like that can really help students remember vocabulary terms and their definitions too.
All right. So, Dr. Freeman, how effective are visual charts and things like that for helping students to both stay organized and also to feel less overwhelmed about study habits?
I think anytime you provide a visual, it benefits the student. One of my favorite visuals is post-it notes, sticky notes. Um, if you have 5 tasks to complete, if a student has 5 tasks to complete, you write a task on each post-it note. Once it's completed, you just simply throw it away. That's very easy, but it allows them to see progress. It allows them to know automatically what they need to do because they can easily refer back to the post-it note. I think anytime you provide a visual, it shows the student that they are successful. By looking at a visual, they can see what they have completed and what still needs to be completed. And that shows progress and success.
All right. So, Judith, most families today are very, very busy. And I imagine that that becomes even more amplified when you're dealing with neurodivergent children. So, for families who are juggling sports and ballet and everything else, including studies, what's a realistic way for them to plan for the week so that nothing falls through the cracks?
Well, life gets lifey. And sometimes you need to adapt and you need to be flexible. The biggest strategy that I would recommend is adding in specific buffer times. So if you have a ballet class and it typically takes you 30 minutes to get there, add in 45. Add in that extra buffer time so that it's realistic and feasible for you to achieve, get there on time and be a part of the class. The other thing, though, is just really an understanding that schedules are not fixed, that although there may be certain non-negotiables or, this is where you have to go for practice, this is when you have to do that, there is an element of flexibility and it's a learning process. So being able to erase things and change times in addition to adding those buffers is really practical and realistic in organizing so many different things that are going on.
All right, thank you. So, Samantha, today's children and students are digital natives. Writing it down on a scrap of paper or post-it notes may not appeal to some of them. Are there any particular apps you might recommend that can help them with their organization?
So there are a lot of things available, a lot of apps or websites that are available that all do the basic same things. But like I personally am one of those people who I don't find using a physical planner to be motivating enough. I don't like using physical planners. So when looking for something for myself or for students who also don't like physical planners, one of the things I'd look for is like it has a motivating component tied to it. So there's lots of apps out there that have some like a gamification type component. One of them is Habitica. That's one I use personally too. And it really actually turns the keeping track of things into a game. Students can create a character. They can add things that they want to accomplish for the week, whether that be personal things like go to a club meeting or it be something like an assignment that they have due. They can add that task into the app. And then the character actually goes on an adventure. And as they mark it off, their character levels up. They earn rewards for the character. And it's a lot more motivating than just checking off a little box on a regular planner. So for students who find those planners boring or even stressful, it's going to still keep them accountable. They're still keeping track of what they have to do. They're going to feel a sense of accomplishment as they complete the things, but they're going to feel motivated to use it and to get it done because they're earning something in exchange for completing their assignment or their task.
All right, thank you, Samantha. So, Dr. Freeman, many parents who are rearing children who learn and think differently are concerned about test accommodations. What are some things that they need to keep in mind or to know about asking for these accommodations before test day?
And I think that's the most important thing, making sure you make the school aware before test day. Also, let the students know that the accommodations are there to help them and to help them to be successful. A lot of times, students feel I wouldn't say embarrassed, but they know that they need the accommodations, and sometimes there's this wall there that they don't want the accommodations. So making sure that students know that it's okay to have accommodations, and making sure that the school knows that they need those accommodations. A lot of times, schools have to follow procedures and protocols before they can implement those accommodations, such as extended time or small group testing. So they have to prepare for those type things. So making sure that the school knows ahead of time and letting the students know that it's okay to have those accommodations.
So Judith, for a lot of students, when it comes time to take a test, it's nail-biting time. Do you have any favorite test-taking strategies that help to reduce that stress for students?
I do. Basically, first of all, it's understanding that the function of the test is to show what you know. That's it. It's not evaluative of who you are as a person or your broad-based knowledge. It's to show what you know. And understanding that there's a flexibility to your attention span. So students not going to stay hyper-focused from point A to point Z. And when your attention weaves and wanders, what you can do is use a sensory tool in order to bring you back, ground you, and get refocused. Sensory tool for older kids might just be like touching their arm or tapping their arm. It might be a bracelet. For younger kids, it would be like a fidget or some type of thing that they can hold, a special pencil. But bringing that sensory tool into the studying sessions that you have with your student and using it then also creates a link, and it becomes more easy for the individual child to access that information. So it's three things really. It's understanding that it's just to show what you know. You have flexible attention, that your attention is going to go in and out, and that when you need to ground and recenter, you can have some type of sensory tool accessible to you to bring you back into focus.
Thank you for that. So, Samantha, is there any way that students can prepare in advance, maybe to even practice for tests so that they feel less stressed and panicked when test time comes?
So I think there's really two things that students really should be doing if they're worried about taking tests and are wanting to prepare themselves. The first is actually just practicing retrieving the information. And the second is having some sort of calming strategies that they can use day of the test. You don't want it to be that the first time students are ever having to retrieve the information from memory is on test day. So doing practice tests, creating flashcards, using something where they're quizzing themselves like quizzes or Kahoot, something interactive and fun, is going to give them that practice of retrieving the information from memory before they're actually doing so in the testing environment. But that needs to be paired with how can I regulate and calm myself in the testing environment if I do start to feel anxious? So teaching students some calming strategies, some coping strategies, whether that be breathing exercises, some grounding exercises, maybe some stretches, depending on the testing environment and flexibility in the testing environment, something that they can use in the moment. That way, students are going in on test day knowing two things. They have already practiced retrieving this information. They've shown that they can do it before. And B, if they do start to feel stressed, if they freeze, they have something that they can use to help calm and reset and then show what they know.
All right, well, that's going to be our last word for this conversation. Dr. Misty Freeman, Judith Quinlan, and Samantha Owens. Thanks for the knowledge.